So I just got this laptop. I put a desktop computer on Kijiji, and someone asked if I just wanted to trade for this laptop. So they gave me the model number for the laptop, and I looked it up, and it's worth about the same price I was asking for the desktop. So I figured, why not? The computer that I was selling was the garage computer, so I just used it for like looking up manuals and stuff, listening to music or whatever. And this is a tiny little 11-inch laptop. I was also in the middle of working on cars, so I'm like dirty. It's a little 11-inch laptop, so I figured this would actually be perfect to have in the garage instead of that giant 27-inch monitor and then everything. So I mean, like, I might actually just keep this in the garage and then sell all of the stuff that I have in the garage, the monitor, keyboard, mouse, all that stuff. So the first thing that I want to do here is just go into the BIOS. So that's F2, and I'm just going to show you how to make like just an old computer better again. So I'm gonna, like, this is stuff that I've picked up doing computer repairs and everything over the years, and I just want to show you how simple this stuff is. Okay, so first we have this laptop, and I got him to leave it just the way that it was. Now I know that's not something you should ever do when you're selling a laptop. You should always delete all of your stuff because you never know who's buying it. However, I've been doing this stuff professionally, and as one of the protocols is you're not allowed to go through any files, and if you back up anything, you're not allowed to look through them, and there's legally binding things behind it. So it's not something that I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be looking through any of his files or anything. So one of the things that I want to show you here was, so this is an Alienware M11x R3. So it's a pretty old laptop. The BIOS is A03. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is looking for BIOS updates. That's the number one thing that I want to do with everything, is get the BIOS as up to date as possible before touching anything else. Now I've already gone into the operating system. I've already downloaded them. There's an A04 and A05. I'm going to do A04 first, and then just kind of go through the BIOS on my own just to see what the updates were. And then A05 was actually released this year, which is crazy that there's a BIOS update for such an old laptop this year. So I'm going to end up going to that one eventually, but I just wanted to show you the specs and everything. So it's a 2nd gen i7. It's nothing super crazy or whatever. It has a NVIDIA graphics. Doesn't tell me which one, but this is a 540M, so it's still, you know, fairly old. Then we go down, we have 8 gigs of RAM, 2 4GB banks, and they're both installed. And then I believe, I'm not 100% because I haven't looked into it yet, but I just kind of quickly Googled it or whatever, and I don't think this has an M.2 slot or anything like that. So it just has like the one single 2.5-inch bay. And it said it was 600 and something gigabytes or whatever, so it's a 750 gigabyte hard drive, and judging by the speed, it's definitely a mechanical hard drive. So I have a 1 terabyte SSD that I'm going to put in that for a little bit of an upgrade. 8 gigs of RAM should be more than enough. Like, even 4 gigs of RAM would probably be enough for what I intend on using it for, but if I do end up getting rid of this, you know, 8 gigs of RAM is all right. Maybe upgrade to 16, but with the graphics card being so low, it's not really worth it, because any games that a 540M is going to be able to play, 8 gigabytes of RAM is going to be way more than you need for any kind of games like that. So that was that. So the first thing I'm going to do is update the BIOS, but what I wanted to show you first was the boot speed. So let's go to this thing here. Clock. Agree. Sure. Allow. All right. Okay, cool. Stopwatch. Okay, so I'm going to try and start these at like the exact same time. We're going to start the stopwatch at the same time as we push the power button to try and get it as close as possible, and it's a very long boot process. As soon as Discord pops up, I'm just going to stop it because Windows still loads after that for quite a while, but that'll at least give us a baseline until when we get into Windows. There, so we are started. Actually, I'll leave this so we can see it. Gonna do it or no? Oh yeah, no, it's still trying to figure itself out. Oh, it's loading something. Okay, so there's Discord. It's popping up, so it's gonna try and connect. So yeah, check for updates. Okay, so we have a minute and a half. That's that's basically what we have to get to, or what we have to beat. So a minute and a half, that's gonna be easy to beat. But okay, what were we gonna do here? Oh yeah, okay, so I'm gonna install some benchmarking stuff just to get kind of like a baseline benchmark for temperatures. So we'll probably do like Furmark or something, and then like an AIDA64 stress test for like 5 or 10 minutes or something, just to get baseline temperatures, because we're not going for performance. This is a very old laptop, like 2nd gen i7 540M. What do we do here? Okay, wait, this one, device manager, and come on, buddy, let's go. Okay, so display adapters. So yeah, it's a GeForce GT 540M, so it's not even a GTX card or anything. Like I said, if I use this in the garage, it's literally going to be for like listening to music, YouTube videos, looking at manuals and stuff, so the graphics doesn't matter at all. I'm just pretty stoked that this is an 11-inch laptop, so this is going to be mint. Okay, so graphics card figured out. It doesn't have the drivers for scrolling. And obviously this computer didn't come with Windows 10, it's a Windows 7 laptop. So someone installed 10 on this and didn't do the drivers or anything. We have 8 gigs of RAM. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this thing. Oh yeah, and then the storage here, I'll show you the storage. Whew, this is struggling. So we have 679 gigabytes. And the drive is fairly full, just because the guy used this for gaming, so it's just full of his games and everything. So now I downloaded the BIOS updates, so I'm going to do A04 first, so that way we can get that going. It's going to show the current one. Are you sure you want to flash the BIOS? Yes, but I just want to show you this quick. Okay, so right here we have A04, or A03 is the current one that's on there, which we showed earlier, and then A04 is the one that we're going to be upgrading to. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to play around with it, and then I'm going to go to A05 before we actually continue and open this up and start cleaning everything out, cleaning dust out, changing thermal compound. Oh wait, no, I got to install these programs, then run a benchmark. So we will, actually I'm going to install those first, run the tests the way it is, then do the BIOS, run the tests, see if the BIOS actually improves anything. Probably not going to. Maybe some optimization, you know, we could be optimistic about it. Then I will open it up. So I'm gonna run all those benchmarks and everything, and if I have anything, it'll be coming up next. If not, we're just gonna go to opening this. So I'm still on A03. I haven't updated the BIOS yet because I just wanted to get baselines of everything before doing this. And the first thing that I noticed already is that the CPU, right here, it's idling at like 60 degrees Celsius. Oh, peaked at 70 there. Like, I'm not doing anything. There's nothing running. AIDA64 stress test, it's not running. Like, there's 7-8% load on the CPU. That's it. It's nothing like super crazy or whatever. And we're hitting like 60s to 70 degrees. So like, this thing definitely needs thermal compound. Like, what? Yeah, and then the GPU, again, 60 degrees. But yeah, so the temperatures are crazy, so this is not going to go well for a stress test. It's probably going to fail. Benchmark the drive. It's a mechanical hard drive, so we basically got like 100 megabyte per second read and write, you know, in that ballpark or whatever. We're not picking hairs here or anything, so that's basically baseline. Try and beat 100 megabyte per second, and this is not by any means a fast drive, and we already know it's going to win. The drive is in good health though, so the boot time and everything had nothing to do with the drive failing, so this is just all heat and bloatware related issues and the fact that the drive is slow. It is a 7200 RPM drive, which is good, but it's still just, it's not going to keep up with an SSD, and it is a 750 gigabyte hard drive. So I'm going to run this AIDA64 test, and then we'll see what the temperatures are, and then after updating the BIOS to A04 and then A05, I'm going to run the benchmarks again, and if there is a difference, I'll show you. If not, we're just going to be cutting right into disassembling this, changing thermal compound, and tossing that SSD in, clean install of Windows, all that junk, and then we'll continue from there. Oh my god, that fan is just going. The test has been running for 15 seconds, and the fan is already going at like full tilt. We don't have a monitor for the fan speed, so we can't look into that, but we're already sitting at 86 degrees on the CPU, 85 degrees on the GPU. We're at 77 on the dedicated graphics. 78, 88, we're hitting 90 on the CPU. This is gonna fail. This isn't gonna go well. And yeah, we're actually already thermal throttling. Good. Yeah, so we're at 800 megahertz on the CPU. Awesome. So that was, you know, about a minute and a half and we're already thermal throttling. We peaked at 90 degrees Celsius on the CPU and 87 degrees on the GPU. And no, wait, that's integrated again. Yeah, that's really messing me up. We gotta not look at that. Okay, so 84 is what we peaked at. And yeah, okay. I'm gonna update the BIOS and see if this changes. Okay, long story short, it did absolutely nothing. We hit 90 degrees, thermal throttled every time, so that was just a huge waste of time. But now we know. So there may have been some optimizations and everything, but definitely nothing that was going to give us any kind of performance result that would be better than changing the thermal compound. So I'm just showing you here that we're on A05 now, and the only difference that I noticed with this new BIOS, the A05, is it allowed the resolution to change, so everything actually fits on one screen now. We don't have to scroll. It's not like super small, so we can actually see everything now, but that was basically it. So I'm going to shut it off, and we're opening this thing up, and we are going to clean any dust out, change the thermal compound on everything, and then install this SSD. And then we'll install Windows and install the programs, and we're gonna do it all over again. Let's try and do this one-handed here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cover my Windows serial number because we're still gonna be using that. And then you're just gonna pull up from this corner here and pry forward. And that's it. And all the screws are captive, so they don't fall out. So we're gonna put that aside somewhere right over here. And this is gonna suck. We're gonna have to get way in here because we have to take these heat sinks. Ow, Jesus, that's hot. We have to take these heat sinks off and change the thermal compounds. We're gonna have to take the battery out, hard drive, the Wi-Fi antenna. So we're actually gonna have to dig into this a fair amount to actually get in here to change the thermal compound. So this is gonna suck, but it's gonna make it significantly better, so the turnover is definitely gonna be worth it. First thing we're gonna do here is remove these 2 screws on the side. They're captive screws again, so they don't come out, and we're just going to unplug power for the battery, and then just lift the battery out, and we are in business. Battery is removed. These 3 screws, oh, those are captive as well, okay. Okay, so now we have these 3 screws here, 1 here, there's 2 here, and we're just gonna take this tab, pull it straight up, and remove the hard drive. So that's the hard drive that we're gonna be changing with the SSD, so we'll put that over there with that guy. Now next, we want to remove these 2 antennas. So just, I guess like a mental note is like the white one goes towards the hard drive, black goes towards the RAM. Just kind of wiggle those up and down or whatever, get them loose, very brittle. So be careful. Oh, there we go. There we are. So now those are removed, and this actually screws into the chassis, so we are gonna have to remove this. This screw should not be captive, so make sure you don't lose it. There, let's pop that card out. So that's the Wi-Fi card, put that aside. I guess just for safe measure, we should probably take the RAM out. We're gonna have to remove all of these chassis screws because the motherboard comes out from the keyboard side. So we need to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yes, there's 10 screws. So it's all the ones around the perimeter and the 4 end of the battery. These screws removed, we have the 3 here, we have 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, here, and then the 4 in here, 5 in here, there's 1 here. So we have, what is this, 5 here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 6 screws there. I don't remember where they were. Anyway, the long ones all go around the perimeter, and then the short ones all go in the battery thing here. So, I mean, like, you'll figure it out. So now we just have to flip this over, open up the lid, and we're gonna have to remove this trim here to get the screws to take the keyboard out. So I'm just gonna use one of these little, like, plastic things. Don't start on that side, start on this side. It has a little channel right here. You can just faintly see it there. Should be where we pry in from. If it works, come on, reveal your secrets. Okay, this is way too hard to do one end. So I'm gonna pop that off and I'll show you where the clips are so you know what to actually pry off without breaking them. And then there should be like 3 or 4 screws at the top of the keyboard here. There are significantly more clips than I had anticipated. So once you get it off, you start in one corner, work your way all the way across the front, and then pry in from the hinges to get that off, and then just try to get in as far as you can to pry the middle one out, and then you don't break any clips. But there's like tons all over the bottom of this thing. And now with that removed, this actually only has 2 because 11 inch. The other one that I was working on was a 17, so that would be why there's very little screws here. Another short one, so it's a 3mm. Another 3mm, can pry that up enough, and then it's just clipped around the edges. So you can pull it, but not all the way off. It is still connected with a ribbon cable. Just be careful, take that off, get the whole keyboard, slide it this way, and then we can disconnect this backlight for the keyboard, like that, and then again with this one here. There we are. So now we can put the keyboard aside. Put those up so we don't break those tabs off. This is where the fun begins. We're gonna have to disconnect all of these things and then take off the entire chassis as well as the rest of the screws here. But with these 3 screws removed, these were again 8mm ones, so right there, and over here. Then this little ribbon cable here, this one here, you have to go from the front and you just kind of pry it up and it just comes out just like that, and then you can lift it up and then just disconnect this guy right here. There, and you just pull it. So now that entire thing is disconnected. Okay, we got some dust in there, so you know, we get to clean all that up. But now we have to disconnect the display cable for the display, obviously. And fan can stay connected if your computer ever starts and it says like F1 or whatever, because I can't remember the BIOS things. You have to change this battery right here that plugs in there. This is the Bluetooth card, which we can just leave connected. So we're gonna have to remove any of the screws that have an arrow. So we have one here. We're gonna have to remove both of these and this board because that's gonna be in the way. So we'll start with those 2 and then this one. And there's another 2 there. So one of them is actually under the hinge for the display. So we're actually gonna have to remove the display now. So we're gonna remove these 4 first. I'll take the display off and then we'll remove these ones, that one there, and then we can disconnect this, and then we can remove this. Gee, these things are like puzzles, man. But at least it's on a MacBook. Those were M2 5mm, so that's those ones there. So they're like the medium ones. So the short ones were the 3, the long ones are 8. The display ones are 5. So if you ever lose any of these, you know which bolts to get. And that just pulls right up. Oh, we're still connected to something. There's a cable that goes around to the back. That is the Wi-Fi cable, because the antennas come up to the display. They come along here for better reception. So we're actually just going to leave that out of the way because we don't really need to remove it. We're trying to change thermal compound. But if you were removing the display, you would take the Wi-Fi cables and route it all the way out to remove it, and then you can actually fix the display or whatever. Now we have, no, these ones. These are M3. At least these aren't like a bunch of different torques and pentalobe, whatever. So now we should be able to remove that. It's sticky. Why is it sticky? Difficult. There we are. Pry that up, and there we are. The I/O for the side. Move that out of the way. Now we can continue with the motherboard. One. Oh my god. Oh, actually they're numbered. So this one here says number 1, and that is 3mm, number 2, 3, and 4. You see the little marking there where it has a little arrow and it says the number. So now we should be able to remove the motherboard. I'm just kind of grabbing it right here, lifting it up, sliding the ports out, and then lifting it out. There we go. So now we have the motherboard. Now we can clean this up and change all the thermal compound, and then we just have to reassemble the entire thing. So now that we're working just with the raw PCB itself, I did go to a mod mat where we're grounded, so I don't want the PCB actually sitting on my desk. And then these screws here, you take them out in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and just a personal preference, I like to crack each one loose, just like a quarter turn for each one, just to relieve the pressure. Because if you take off, let's say like 1, 2, 3, all of the pressure is pushing down on number 4 and it's holding it onto the chip. So I like to crack them all loose, relieve a little bit of pressure, and then unscrew all of them after and then take them off. And then this fan cable right here, it kind of has like a cloak on it for some reason, but you just pull it straight up. Now this should come off. Now we have, let's see. Oh yeah, this stuff is finished. Come on, focus. Ah, right. So there we go. So now we can go in here and you can actually just see that this stuff is just flaking off in like chunks. So this thermal compound is long overdue. You know, it's a paste. It's not supposed to be crispy. So I'm gonna clean all that off, and then I will clean the heat sinks off, just isopropyl alcohol and some paper towel or whatever, and then we can pop this fan apart and clean all the dust out. And then I'll show you how to properly apply thermal compound to laptops. It's different from desktops. So now that everything is clean, we can start taking the fan apart to get all the dust out. So that's going to just be these 3 screws here. Focus. So those 3 screws there. 3 Phillips screws. One thing that I just noticed here is there's actually just this tiny little thermal pad, and that's going from this right here to the heatsink. And when it's on, these 2 are actually bare, but there is enough room where if you got those tiny little heat sinks, like the kind that they put on like Raspberry Pis and stuff, if you put 2 of those there, you know, it might improve something. Just given that they were trying to cool one of them, but left 2 open, that, you know, maybe if you were to cool all 3, possibly better overclocking. But we're not even gonna mess with that. So I'm just gonna leave that the way it is, and then I have the screws out here, so let's get the reveal. They're usually bad. Oh, yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, on the plus side of it being so thick of just like dust and like pet hair and everything, that is gonna come right off as one piece. Wow. Okay. Well, that's pretty clean. I'm gonna blow that out and then dispose of that. Put the fan back together, and then I'll show you how to put the thermal compound on. Using Thermal Grizzly Cryo Knot as the thermal compound. Normally when you're putting compound on like a desktop computer, you just put like a bit in the middle or whatever. Sometimes people do a line or an X or whatever. The thing with a laptop is the die is exposed. When you put it like just in the middle on a desktop, it gets dispersed, and it usually makes a circle and leaves the edges bare, which is fine because it has an integrated heat spreader. The name literally defines what it is. It's an integrated heat spreader. It spreads the heat out from the die to a larger surface area, so that way the heatsink can connect to it and go all the way down. But when you delid, the entire die is always covered, because if you leave the edges, it's exposed and you can damage the CPU or the GPU like that. So when I'm doing this, I'm gonna try and get up close so you get a good view of this. So the thermal compound, I just kind of push it out, okay, until it just hits the edge, and then just dab. That's it. And just get a very, very thin coat over the entire thing. I would consider that adequate coverage. Now we're gonna do the CPU, same thing. And it doesn't matter if you have any thin spots, like right there, you can see that it's just a little bit, oh wait, focus. So right there, you can see it's a little bit thin, right at the bottom there. That's fine, because when you put the heatsink back on, it will spread out. It's just to make sure that you have some on all of it, because some of it will get squished out after when the heatsink is tightened down. But it's just to be absolutely certain that you do not have any of the die exposed. And always use a non-conductive thermal compound like this. Arctic Silver 5 is also another good choice. I am content with that. So that's the coverage. And now we can put the heatsink on. And with them all cleaned up, fans all cleaned up, and just plop it down. Try to get those screws to line up as good as possible without sliding it around too much. Focus. Focus. There we are. Okay, so 1, little turns, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now that they're all started, now we can run them all down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remember to plug the fan back in, because it would suck if you forgot and got the whole thing back together. The little hood back over there. That's it. Now we just have to reassemble the entire thing. You could get 8GB modules, or just 4 and just continue with the 8GB. But you could probably get 12 800 modules and get a little bit of a speed boost as well with that. Because most PCs will just support it, even if it doesn't say that it's officially supported. I know Macs, well, not that it matters now because you can't upgrade them, but the older ones came with 10600, and if you put 12800 in them, they would kernel panic because the RAM was not compatible, because it actually detects the speed. It's like, nope, something's wrong, and it just shuts off. But for PCs, usually you can upgrade it, so that would kind of be a like a modest upgrade or whatever to increase the RAM speed a little bit. The whole thing is all back together. We can do the SSD. So for this, the first thing you want to do is just try to take this little adapter out, and that just slides out, And then also make sure that the data and the power connector for the SSD are facing the right side. So as you can see when we took it off, the data is on the left and data is on the right. So when we're installing this, we want to have it this way. So now there's just 4 Phillips screws on each side. We just take those out, slide that in, put the screws in, put the thing on, and then it just click, done. It's super. I really don't need to be showing you how to do this. Bingo bango, it's done. So we just in, down, make sure that's connected there, good, and we just have to plug the battery in. So we can tighten these 3 screws up, connect the power. Oh, there we go. Battery is now connected. Get that cable back in there, all tucked away. All right, perfect. So now we just have to put the bottom cover on and then we'll install Windows. So it turns out that these laptops are not UEFI. So I had to make a new USB installer and now I get to try it again. So it's gonna be master boot record, not UEFI. So if you're making a USB stick for Windows, make sure you're using master boot record, or at least for this laptop. So if you're using this laptop, master boot record. So we are done back on, everything is good. We have the 1 terabyte SSD in, and now we are installing. So now we just sit back and wait. We're finally here. Did the last 2 hours actually do anything? Good standing, SanDisk, 1 terabyte, blah, 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 whatever. So that's the SSD, and we have 550 and then 475, so that's just, you know, ballpark 500 average or whatever, and we were getting like 100 before. So 5 times the improvement for speed on storage because we went from a hard drive to an SSD. And now the temperatures. So we're idling, we're around 50 degrees. So before it was what, like 60, 70-ish? So we've dropped like 10 degrees-ish, 10, 15, and then the GPU is just under 40. So now this is kind of going everywhere because it's still like doing Windows updates and everything in the background, but I'm running out of time. I have tons of stuff to do, so we're just gonna start the benchmark. So last time it hit 90 degrees thermal throttled right away, so we are at 2.3 gigahertz. Wow, okay. The fans ramped up to full speed right at like 10 seconds last time. I can hear them creeping, slowly getting up there. So the GPU, 57. I don't remember what the GPU was last time, but the CPU is the big one because it was thermal throttling and then it was stopping. So far we are at 2.2, 2.1 gigahertz, 2.2, 65 degrees. Fans haven't even ramped up yet. They were loud before. Well, I mean, already it's an improvement. We're over 1.5 minutes, which is where we were last time. We hit 90 degrees right away and we were thermal throttling at 800 megahertz. Now we're at 2.1, 2.2. It's fluctuating between that. So that's already a huge improvement. The GPU is at 64 degrees, 65. We're in 2 minutes now. 70 degrees on the CPU. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this for, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then I'll see if it thermal throttles at all. And if not, then this was a definite win. 2 hours, that SSD is like, I don't know, $200 maybe. And the other computer I was trying to sell for 500. Oh, there we go. There's the fans. I was going to try and take anything over $300 for that computer. So this computer essentially has a value of like $300 to me, and then the SSD is like $200 on eBay for a used one for the exact same one. So $500, $500 laptop. The fans are ramped up full bore. The GPU temperature dropped from 66 to 64. CPU temperature is just dropping consistently here. We hit 72 degrees when it decided to ramp up, and you can see right here the temperature spike, and then it just dips right back down. Yeah, sustainable. The computer seems to have its thing figured out now with new thermal compound and then the speed and everything. So actually, I'm not even gonna leave it for the 10 minutes. We already know it's working. We're just gonna stop that test. We will close this. Fans have already ramped down. Close that, close this. Let's do another boot test to just kind of finalize this here. I don't have any programs that run in the background, so when it gets to the desktop, it is done. There's nothing else that's going to be running or that needs to turn on. So we can go back to this guy here. So we had 129 last time, so about 1.5 minutes. So we're going to go right back and the exact same time. There we are. Okay, so about 35.5 seconds. Yeah, so we've improved the boot time by almost 1 minute. Everything is already loaded, the temperatures are down, it no longer thermal throttles. So, I mean, I don't know what you want to get from this. This is just what I do. I don't know what kind of moral from this story you want to take away. If you have a laptop and you were happy with it when you first got it, but you're not anymore, then this is probably a good solution, is to get an SSD, get yourself a coffee, and rip the whole thing apart. Learn how stuff works, change the thermal compound, clean the dust out of the fan, make it like new. This is essentially a restoration process. Like if you go to a shop where they're going to be selling used laptops, this should be what they do. Not all of them actually necessarily do this, but this is what they should be doing for refurbished laptop. This is the process that they would go along with. Yeah, so essentially just, I don't know, refurbish your laptop yourself. Get a couple more years out of it, because this thing is awesome now, and it has a value of like 500 bucks to me. So like $500 laptop? Hell yeah. This thing is stupid fast. Like for a price point like that, you literally can't argue. So yeah, don't share or subscribe to the channel, or don't, because I'm not telling you what to do.